Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Hello, Miss Ani and everyone who watches this video. I am Indira Anjani. You can call me Indira, and my student number is 231-061-1292. And I'm here to present to you and to do for the final exam of legal English. And today we're going to identify and explain a contract agreement. So the contract agreement that we're going to be doing today is master sale and purchase agreement. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to the very first part of the contract agreement here. And this part also has a very much important role in this contract agreement. Why? Because it asserts some kind of statement on who made this contract and when this contract is made, which is the retailer and the company that is involved in this agreement. Also, who's the parties that we're talking about in this video? In this video and in this contract agreement, we're talking about PT Berkat Pasti Melimpah as the retailer and PT Sumber Hidup Sehat as the company. Okay, let's get to the next part, which is the second part of the contract agreement, which is the recitals, or in Indonesia, it is premise. It's a clear statement that collectively, retailer and company that are involved in this agreement will be referred to as parties and individually referred to as a party. The recitals in this agreement also talking about the very much important element that should be abided by both parties and how it will affect the continuous and long term of this cooperation agreement. So we can see here like the part that the both parties trying to include, like they're trying to introduce the company brand name and the experience and license of the company, and the company agreed to cooperate in the selling of product and subject to the standard that quality is mentioned hereof. Okay, so this is one of the most important part in this clause. We can see here the H part, this agreement, including terms, attachment, instructions, or information set forth or referred to in this agreement, constitutes the entire agreement between the retailer and the company regarding the subject matter of the sale and purchase of product, whether by written acknowledgement or by performance by the company, will be subject to these terms unless the parties expressly agree in writing that these terms do not apply, or the parties have entered into a separate and signed agreement covering the purchase of the product. No modification of these terms will be effective unless made in writing and signed by the retailer. So why is this important? First, it's a written warning for both parties that they are attached to this contract agreement and must be followed thoroughly clause by clause in detail. Second, as a final warning for both parties that includes all of the things that are necessary to be abide, and if there's any change, it needs to be written and signed by the retailer. After it is done, written and signed by the retailer, so then it become official and can substitute the prior agreement. Okay, let's see here. We're jumping into the article. So we're going to the first article, or Article 1, which is talking about the price. The first article talks about the price that was agreed before. This part declares the fixed price that was negotiated before before this agreement was placed. And then jumping into the Article 2, which is talking about the terms of payment. Article 2 is the continuation of Article 1 because it gives some details about how the retailer can do and report the payment to the company that sold the product. Okay, look at the circle paragraph here. It's a special requirement that needs to be paid attention to in order for the transaction between both parties can be done right according to the contract agreement. So it is talking about the main, like, expiry date for the payment, like unless otherwise stated in this agreement, payment must be made within 20 calendar days from the receipt date of the correct and valid invoice. If the product is rejected or not correctly delivered, the invoice will be paid within 30 calendar days. So it's like some, PS to avoid any kind of possible accident that can happen regarding to the payment things. So this two article is very much important, and because if they're talking about like the payment price, they have to have some kind of rule that regulates the terms of payment. So if there's any mistakes that are done in the future, they can refer to this article. Okay, next slide. Okay, the next slide, we're talking about the taxes. The price that was negotiated and fixed later on doesn't include any fees related to taxes, and it's under the tax laws and regulations in Indonesia. So it doesn't include any taxes, import fees, and other charges imposed in connection with the sale and delivery of the product. So there's some severability there. Okay, the fourth article or Article 4 talking about the amendment. So the company in this contract agreement have the full rights to change any clause in this contract. This part exists, so if there's any changes that needs to be done, they can refer officially to this specific clause. However, we're going to the fifth article or Article 5 talking about cancellation. If the retailer in this contract agreement doesn't agree with the amendment that's been done by the company, they have the rights to cancel this whole or in part agreement. Their sole responsibility after the cancellation is only to return the payment that was agreed on. So, if the company have the rights to change or to make any amendment regarding to this contract, the retailer also have the right to cancel any of this contract agreement that abide both parties, because if there's any changing that the retailer doesn't agree on, they can cancel this part, and they can refer to this article, which is Article 4 and Article 5. Okay, so this is Article 6, which is talking about the delivery. This clause is in order for both parties to do the delivery as the listed regulation, if there's any delivery that needs to be done. So let's talk about the 6A, which is I think is pretty important because it highlights the possible accident that could happen in the future. And if it happens, the retailer have the rights to cancel the agreement without reducing their whole rights, unless this accident is already accepted by the retailer. Okay, so we're jumping to the Article 7 and Article 8, and they're talking about the further possible accident that could happen in the future. Article 7 talks about how the product should be delivered to the right address, which is at Mampang Street, number 25, South Jakarta. And if there's any products that is incorrectly delivered, the company have to be responsible for any additional fees for the products to be delivered to the correct address. And Article 8 declares the rule of packing the products that needs to be delivered. The product should be packed safely, and it's in the responsibility of the company if there's any damages happens because of the unsafe packing. So if there's any accident that regarding to the unsafe packing, the retailer or the company or everyone who's delivering the packaging should be responsible for any additional fees. Moving on to the Article 9, which is, I think, another important part in this clause. It's talking about force majeure. Mistakes and accident can happen, but if it happens outside of the both parties' will and responsibilities, such as listed above, like natural disasters, the public enemy, war, compliance with laws, fire, flood, quarantine, uh, embargo, epidemic, and unusually severe weather or other causes similar to the foregoing beyond the control of the party so affected, such as listed above, it could be excused. But the party who seeks to avail themselves with anything that is going on outside of their will and responsibilities must notify the other party for the delay and failure of the delivery or acceptance. So why is this article important? Because such accidents can happen at any moment, and the party who's responsible for the delivery can't be blamed since it's outside of their will. So this article or clause exists to accommodate those possible accidents, and the party who's responsible don't have to take full damages and loss from the force majeure itself. Moving on to the Article 10, which is talking about the intellectual property rights. This clause gives a responsibility for the company to give full warrants for the retailer that involved in this contract agreement to be freed from any claims of infringement and possible accusation by competitors. If it leads to the court, the company should accommodate the retailer, including any cost of attorney and litigation. So this clause giving a responsibility for the company to be responsible for any kind of possible accusation for the retailer. It also warrants that the product covered by this agreement will be free from any claims of infringement of patent, copyright, trademark, trade secret, or any other intellectual property right of any other party. And Article 7, which is talking about the title and risk. And according to this clause, the title and risk of the product will be in the possession of the retailer after it's already transferred. But before it's transferred, the title and risk of the product remain in the company. Okay, this is Article 12, which is talking about the relationship of the parties. This clause is another important article in this contract because it emphasizes clearly the boundaries and relationship that is happening between the company and the retailer, merely as a cooperation between the company and the retailer only. So why is this important? Because any differences in this relationship that is written in this contract agreement will determine the legal consequences, and the company doesn't aim for that. The retailer is not a part of the company, which is why they can be called as agent. And moving on to the Article 13, which is talking about assignment or pengalihan in Indonesia. So consent is key. Each party, whether it be the company or the retailer, can assign, transfer, or subcontract this agreement with a prior written consent from the other party. It's an agreement that both should be aware of any substance inside of it. So mutual consent is very much important to avoid any threat and unwanted betray between both parties. Okay, moving on to the Article 14, which is talking about confidentiality. This clause is a warning for the both parties involved to keep the information in this contract agreement and any information given as confidential. The confidential information could be given to its own employees and any employees that needs the confidential information for professional benefit only. So it's very much important to keep the confidentiality between the circle of this field only. And the Article 15 talking about the insolvency, which is important also for the sake of the relation between the company and the retailer. Why? Because if the company becomes insolvent, the retailer have the rights to cancel any agreement that is happening between them to prevent any loss that they could receive in the future. Okay, we're going to the Article 16 talking about others. So others, it is like the things that is not included in any prior article, and also very much important, which is emphasizing each headings in this contract agreement. And there's a severability for any regulations in this agreement that doesn't affect any other regulations if one clause or any one regulation doesn't work. And Article 17, talking about the governing law of the language. This clause is used to avoid any misinterpretation that could happen in the future. And if it does happen, Indonesian language will be the prevailed one. And the last article of this contract agreement talking about the governing law. So this final article or clause emphasizes the law that governed this contract agreement, which is the laws of the Republic of Indonesia and the use of BANI or Badan Arbitrase Nasional Indonesia if there's any cases or any problems that needs to be done by doing some arbitration. And that is, it is agreed as follows. It means whereof it is the place where both parties should assign by, and then it become official for both parties to follow this contract agreement. Okay, so that is my presentation for identifying and explaining the contract agreement, talking about the master sale and purchase agreement. Sorry if there's any mistakes. Know that it's not intentional. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it can be beneficial for me and for everyone who watches this video. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.